Hello, 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 my people. Human Handbook community, Dr. Adam Tice here, signing in, checking in, establishing contact. How you guys doing? So, had a busy week the last week or so, a little bit quiet on the home front on my end, but again, reestablishing contact here. Just had some things moving around in the personal world. Dr. Jim posted on that earlier. So, things get busy. When it's time to go, it's time to go. And a lot of that had to do with the Vastu of a place. So sometimes, this is a great thing. I'll introduce this concept of Vastu. It's a little something different, and it kind of came up today. So again, Human Handbook community, this is everything you need to know but nobody's talking about. So I think Vastu is in this category, and that's a Sanskrit word. It basically means the science of the space of a building, of a home, of a building. So Ayurveda is such a wonderful, vast, highly sophisticated science that was given to us by the rishis and the saints and the sages of ancient India. And they documented a lot of this, and so there is a detailed anatomy, and we're going to be talking some more about this. I love talking about the Ayurvedic sciences. That's kind of what my background is. Some of you guys know that, but before going to naturopathic medical school, this is what a lot of my background was studying the yogic sciences and Ayurveda, which the Ayurveda is just a Sanskrit word that means the science of life. Ayu and Veda is the life, and so it's the science of life, and so Vastu is under that category. So just like in Ayurveda, and again, I want to talk about this more. And this is actually, by the way, this download about Ayurvedic sciences. So if this is something, not everybody's interested in this, and I get that. I think it's super interesting. And if you're interested in health and natural health and healing and working with the principles of nature, working with the forces of nature and cooperating with the forces of nature to optimize the quality of your life, to optimize the quality of your health, to optimize the quality of your mind, I highly suggest you acclimate yourself with the science of Ayurveda and some of these yogic sciences. These are just the basic foundational these are the original medical sciences, actually. In ancient India, there were sophisticated modes of medicine that were in place, advanced surgeries. I mean, things like organ replacements. And, so there was a deep knowledge and a deep science of surgery and medicine in that sense, but also the more of the holistic and science of life division of the Ayurvedic sciences. That is actually what the program that I actually developed a course for this, an 11-day at-home retreat and detox that gives a deep dive into the principles of Ayurveda as it relates to the body and the doshas and the elements and the principles of the elements in the body, and then also the principles of the mind sciences. That's what Detox and Meditation Mastery is all about. So actually, some of you guys had access to that program. So those of you guys that have been through that program, you know what I'm talking about in getting if you have an interest, which if you're hanging around in this community, you have at least some kind of an interest in the science of life. So that's what the Detox and Meditation Mastery program is all about, to give that working, functional, practical Ayurvedic knowledge about how do I incorporate this knowledge of Ayurveda into my everyday life. That's what that download's all about. So those of you guys who've done that program, good for you, kudos. You know, maybe you guys can leave some comments about this, about your experience, you know, maybe below this video, and let the other folks, you know, just know about that. And those of you who have not done that program, I would look into that. I can put a link for that program or somewhere. It's okay. We'll talk about that later. It's a really dynamite program. But anyway, as it relates to the body and the Ayurveda and the science and the knowledge of life, that's what the Vastu is for buildings. Just like the body has certain anatomy to it, a certain physiology to it, a certain guiding principles about how the nadis and the shrotas and the energy channels in the body work. Ayurveda gives us highly detailed knowledge of that, and we can work with that. They do the same thing for building sciences. And so we look at this also, and this is something for you know, so for some of my patients that I've worked with a long time, I don't do this with everyone, but you know, this is interesting. You know, again, there's so much stuff that can be done. A lot of times we don't get to do this kind of stuff in our one-on-one visits. So again, that's kind of what this venue is for, is to talk about these greater sciences that maybe aren't, you know, so individualized one-on-one clinical time, but this is super important stuff that we need to know about, again, if we're interested in maintaining the health of our mind, of our bodies, if we're interested in quality of life, longevity, spirituality, you know, really peak potential kind of conversations, biohacking, all of that kind of knowledge is, as far as I'm concerned, is a lot of that is not into you know, looking into the future and all this kind of stuff, but it's leveraging and leaning on the wisdom of the ancients and then moving that knowledge into the modern world. I think a lot of the sophistication of the ancients, it will come, of the ancient sciences and Ayurveda, I'm including in that, it'll come full circle. And I think it's important. This Vastu is the knowledge of the building sciences. So the building has a health. There is an optimal way to orient the house, you know. Is the door facing east or west or north or south? And again, there's not a cookie cutter response to this. This also is going to depend on your individual astrology and how the stars and the sun and the moon and the planets were aligned when you landed on the earth. And then we actually look at that, and that can influence the Vastu. So that's why sometimes one particular building, say a house, may be really, really, really good for one person. But then the other person, or maybe a great place, a fantastic place. Everybody comes over and is like, oh wow, this is such a great house, and da-da-da-da-da-da, it's beautiful, and blah, 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 yard's great, everything's great. And for one person, that might be true, and they might really thrive in that house. And then another person can come into that house and it can just be not the best place for them. And if that goes on, and actually a deeper level, and you can do this, if sometimes if cases, in a clinical case, if you give good indicated recommendations, you know, dietary recommendations, therapeutic diet, good remedies, good, you know, Ayurvedic tonic herbs, good recommendations, and that person is still not improving, then we'll have to look into that. What's the health of the building? You know, on one level, there's the environmental medicine component of a building. Non-toxic paint, non-toxic flooring, non-toxic you know, design elements, and then looking through, make sure there's not old exposures to lead or you know, lead or some other environmental, testing the water, making sure there's no water contaminants, making sure there's no mold in the house. These are sort of environmental med, home health considerations, high level, naturopathic that you look at, but the Ayurvedic sciences take this to a whole nother degree. So it's just, you know, this is, my intention was not to go into a full Vastu download, but just to introduce this concept and let you guys know that this even exists. The science of building a home, and then the science of actually placement of certain rooms in the home. There's optimal places for front doors and entry points, and for kitchens, and for master bedrooms, and for guest bedrooms, and for living spaces. There's an anatomy and a physiology and an optimal way you can set up the flow in the house. And so maybe this is an invitation just to check in and see what's the Vastu, what's the health of the building like, because if there is an arrangement either in a floor plan or an orientation of a building that is not optimal for you, if you stay in that structure long enough, it will impact the physical health. It'll start to impact the mental health and the energy of the system. And then if it goes on for years, it can impact the physical health of your physical body, the health of the building. So this is Vastu. I think the best equivalent that people probably have a reference point to is the Chinese counterpart of Feng Shui. And that is also the building of the science of building and the health of the building and kind of holistic home design and floor plan arrangement and stuff like that. But for me, Vastu, and if you know, Vastu goes into much, much greater detail of that. And there's a few people in the world that we know about. There's literally only a couple that hold the knowledge. There's one particular family that's from the south of India, and they do have a few people that they've trained in the West here that do have this knowledge of Vastu. So, you know, the dream really is to, of course, build our home. And when we do build according to the Vastu principles based on the individual's astrology, the family astrology, and then do the Vastu consult and design the architecture and the floor plan based on the Vastu. That's the primo, okay? I'll let you guys know when that day comes. It's on the way, though. We will do that. Just hasn't been the right, land and the right opportunity yet, for us. But also along those lines, as far as, visions for the greater vision for the clinic and for really naturopathy and bringing Ayurveda and keeping these sciences alive is to have the retreat facility, which is really would be a modern day sanatorium, which is, a nature cure hospital. And this is really what we're, really I think it's essential that this be done in the world that we're living in today. The world needs this. The people need this. We are going to need this, and I'll talk about, I think I'd like to talk about this more in further sessions later this week. Let's continue our conversations on Vastu and on using the guiding principles of nature and cooperating with those fundamental principles of nature to optimize and harmonize our surroundings so that we can optimize and harmonize our own minds and our bodies and optimize our health and play the long game. So this is how we do it, guys. We cooperate with the principles of nature, Ayurveda, nature cure, the Vastu we've talked about today and kind of introduced. So this is the real deal. Wanted to give the introduction here. Let's continue this conversation throughout the week, I think. Talking about this and the need. I think in the last years and the last couple generations, I think stuff like this, as far as like holistic health or Ayurveda or things like Vastu, it's been in the kind of category of special interest where, okay, if you're interested in stuff, that's kind of cute, that's holistic, okay, that's good. But now we are really moving into an era, a new era as a society where these things, they're no longer elective. Now, whether everybody is an expert in this stuff, okay, I get it. Not everybody's going to be an expert in this stuff. But as far as bringing this knowledge and bringing things like nature cure facilities and sanatoriums based on these principles of Ayurveda, based on these principles of nature cure, it's essential that we bring these into the mainstream because the people need it. The people need it, and this is everything that people need to know, but nobody's talking about, nobody's bringing this into the mainstream. So this is our job to make it mainstream and bring it, because this is what the humanity needs to keep us sane and to keep us healthy and to stabilize the human system, to stabilize the human biology, because the changes, the technological changes that we've gone through, I think in the last 10 years, unprecedented, and what's coming in the next 10 years, 9 or 10 years, is going to be unprecedented again. The scale at which things are changing, and the biology's never seen anything like this. So we need to keep these Ayurvedic principles, the Vastu principles, so we can stay grounded and make this transition into this new era and stay really healthy and thrive through this time. So that's what we're talking about. Vastu, Ayurveda, nature cure, this is all the good stuff. Okay, this is definitely human handbook content, everything you need to know, but nobody's telling you. Here it is, Dr. Adam Tice today. That's the transmission for today. We'll see you guys mañana. Adios. You guys have a wonderful day. See you later.